Why doesn't Mexico use central air conditioning? That question started bothering me almost immediately after moving to Mérida, Mexico, because if you've ever spent time in the Yucatan, you know the heat is not just hot, it's personal. That kind of heat follows you to your car. That kind of heat makes you question every life decision that brought you outside at 2 p.m. So when I moved here, I just assumed I'd see air conditionings everywhere. And technically, I did, but something felt off. Because where I grew up in the United States, air conditioning usually meant one thing: central air. One giant system, one thermostat, one network of vents connected through all the walls. You're cool throughout your entire house at once, all at once, and that's just normal. But then I got to Mexico and suddenly every house I walked into seemed to have these little white boxes that were hanging on the wall. One in the bedroom, one in the living room, maybe another in a different room. No vents, no giant HVAC system, no central air. These individual units everywhere. And I couldn't stop wondering, if it's this hot, why isn't everybody using central air? At first I thought I already knew the answer. Mexico doesn't use much air conditioning. Problem solved. Except the story lasted about 10 seconds because everybody who's lived in Mérida knows that that is absolutely nonsense. People absolutely use air conditioning here. A lot of it, especially at night, especially during the summer, especially when the heat index starts feeling like a personal attack. So clearly the question wasn't, why doesn't Mexico use air conditioning? The real question was, why doesn't Mexico use central air conditioning? And that sent me down a whole rabbit hole. And the first thing that I discovered was that Americans often assume central air is the standard, the normal option, the obvious option. But the more that I researched, the more that I realized that central air isn't actually a global standard. It's largely an American standard. And that surprised me because growing up, I never even questioned it. Of course, every room should be cool. Of course, the entire house should stay the same temperature. Of course, there should be vents everywhere. Why would you do it any other way? Then I started looking at the houses in Mexico, and suddenly another piece of the puzzle appeared: the walls. The houses are usually built very differently than the houses in America. Concrete block, masonry, reinforced concrete, brick, materials designed for durability, materials designed to handle heat, humidity, storms, and time. And while that's great for a lot of reasons, it also creates a challenge. Running giant ductwork systems through concrete houses isn't nearly as easy as running them through wood-framed construction. And that was the first clue. But it still wasn't enough, because just because something is harder doesn't mean that people aren't gonna do it. So I kept digging, and that's when I discovered something that completely changed the way that I was looking at this problem. What if central air isn't actually the better option? Now, before Americans start typing in angry comments, hear me out. Imagine it's 10 o'clock at night, you're going to bed. You only need one room cooled, the bedroom. With central air, you're often cooling the entire house, the hallways, unused rooms, spaces nobody's even occupying. Meanwhile, a mini split says, why? Just cool the room that you're actually using. And suddenly these little wall units start looking a lot smarter because they aren't just air conditions, they are zone control. You cool what you need, when you need it, and ignore everything else. That means less wasted energy, more flexibility, and often lower operating costs. And that's when I realized that I'd accidentally been asking the wrong question this entire time. The question isn't, why doesn't Mexico use central air? The question was, why does America cool their entire house? Because from a certain perspective, that is a stranger system. Think about it. If one person is watching a TV in the living room, why cool the guest bedroom as well? If you're sleeping, why cool rooms that nobody is using? If you're gone all day, why cool the entire house? Suddenly, the Mexican system starts looking less like a compromise and more like a strategy. And the deeper that I looked, the more examples I found of people intentionally choosing mini splits even when they could afford central air. Not because they couldn't get central air, because they preferred to not get central air. And that is the twist that I wasn't expecting. I started this investigation assuming that central air is a premium option. It's the goal, the thing that everybody should want and should try to get. Instead, I discovered that many people simply prefer solving the problem differently. Then I noticed something else, a pattern that I've run into over and over and over again since moving to Mexico. All the way from the houses being concrete, the pharmacies being a free-for-all, the toilet paper being in the trash can, and of course, the speed bumps. And now it's the air conditioning. Every one of these stories starts the exact same way. I see something, I assume that I understand it, I compare it to America, then I start researching, and eventually I discover that people are doing it for reasons that I never even considered. Not because they're doing it wrong, not because America is doing it wrong, because they're responding to different circumstances, different environments, different priorities. And maybe that's the biggest lesson that I've learned since moving here. A lot of what we call normal is not actually normal. It's familiar. That's all. Familiar. Central air felt normal to me because I grew up around it. Mini splits felt strange because I didn't. But if I had grown up in Mexico, I might feel the exact opposite. I might walk into an American house and wonder why somebody is paying to cool rooms that nobody's using. And honestly, I might think it's kind of funny because once you flip the perspective, the entire story changes. So why doesn't Mexico use central air conditioning the way that America does? Part of the answer is construction. The other part of the answer is infrastructure. The other part of the answer is cost. And part of the answer is efficiency. But the deeper answer is that Mexico isn't trying to solve the problem the same way that America is. It's solving the same problem differently. And the longer that I live here, the more I think that's true about a lot of things. I started making this video thinking that I was researching air conditioning. But what I ended up researching was assumptions. Again, because Mexico keeps doing this to me. Every time that I think I've found something that doesn't make sense, I eventually discover that it makes perfect sense, just from a different point of view. Americans, would you rather have central air or room by room mini splits? And Mexicans, what do you think Americans misunderstand most about air conditioning in Mexico? Let me know in the comments. And if you've enjoyed going down this rabbit hole with me, subscribe. Because every week I seem to find another thing in Mexico that looks completely backwards at first. And then it turns out to be a lot more logical than I ever expected. We're building quite a collection of these stories. And I'm just a guy living in Mexico trying to figure all this out at the same time you are. I appreciate all of you guys' time. Tune in next week. I'll keep dropping these videos if you keep watching them.